Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and there is no team even close to as confusing as the Philadelphia 76ers. They are in the weirdest situation in all of basketball. And part of that is because I think on paper this team looks pretty decent. I am someone who always falls for the 76ers, so let me know if that's happening again. But like Embiid, he wasn't very good last year. He's never really healthy, but he still has been very recently an MVP caliber player. I don't think Paul George could be as bad as he was last year. I think there is a bounce back coming from him. Maxey, I think there's going to be improved play from him with more talent. Jared McCain, I think, could have a monster sophomore season. I really like VJ Edgecombe. Quentin Grimes, assuming they bring him back, he is a really nice addition, had an awesome end to the season. There's some good depth. I think it's a pretty solid team. Is it a championship contender? I don't think so. Everything would have to go perfect, but I think there is a world where they're one of the top 4 seeds in the East, and maybe they win a playoff series. Don't think that's out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. But then I also think about the other outcome, the one that feels like it's already starting to come to fruition, and training camp hasn't even started because at media day and leading up to it, we got some reports. The first one comes out that Jared McCain tore a UCL in his thumb that's going to require him to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. That isn't too long. It's just barely the beginning of the season. But that is a little bit concerning because, he's got to come back. He's got to find his form. And I do think Jared McCain having that year 2 breakout is the X factor to send the Sixers to the high end of those potential outcomes. If Jared McCain takes a step back from last year, a little bit of a sophomore slump, he's not quite as dynamic as he was in that really like 20-some game stretch, then suddenly the Sixers offense, I think, starts to bring up some question marks. We've also got the report that Paul George is going to miss the start of training camp, still recovering from that knee surgery, and knee surgeries are a big deal. That's the one that every time, your favorite team, favorite player has one of those, you kind of cover your ears and say, don't talk about that. Like, that's the boogeyman in the NBA is knee surgeries. And for a guy in PG who I want to see a bounce back from, I thought it was going to be because, hey, he took off a lot at the end of the season. There was time for him to rest. Sure, he got this knee procedure, but he should be good for training camp, right? Doesn't really sound like it. And he needs all the ramp up he can get. He has to be at peak form because, again, like Jared McCain, if we don't get a big season from Paul George looking more like his all-star self, then everything starts to come crumbling down. And then, of course, there's Joel Embiid, and everything revolves around Embiid. None of this matters. If Jared McCain, even if he's popping off, if Paul George is popping off and back to his usual self or the self we saw a couple of years ago, if Embiid isn't MVP Embiid, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. This team is going to come crumbling down if he's not somewhat reliably on the court Embiid. He doesn't have to be out there 82 games, but if you can't get at least 50, 60 from him, then what are we doing here? You might as well go ahead and restart if you're the Sixers. And, we currently don't know when he's going to play. Daryl Morey, the Sixers, said at media day that they're unsure of his timetable, when he's specifically going to play. We don't know what he's going to look like going into training camp, how much he's going to participate. It's all an unknown right now. And Embiid also said, when it comes to me playing, I'm just going to listen to my body. We're going to see how it goes. It's going to be kind of play it by ear type of thing. And it's not really what you want to hear. I was hoping that Embiid, because he missed a lot of the home stretch of last season and a majority of the year in total, I was hoping that this offseason he'd kind of get right. We'd see him a little bit more consistently. I'm not naive. I know that Embiid is going to be dealing with injuries. That is the way it goes with Joel Embiid every single season. But I was hoping we could maybe see a slightly healthier year. And if you at least get him somewhat regularly at that level that you need him at, alongside the other talented players on this team, it's a really good squad in a wide open Eastern Conference. I mean, just on paper, this is the best chance the Sixers have had in a long time to make it to a conference finals. I know that sounds crazy, but there's no Boston, who has been the definition of unstoppable force against them. You've got no Indiana, who was, of course, really good last season, and I think could specifically pose some problems for the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, the Knicks and the Cavs are really good, but with the Knicks, if Embiid's playing at his peak form, that's a front court you can kind of exploit. And with that dynamic backcourt of McCain and Maxey going at like Jalen Brunson, maybe there's something there. The Knicks are better, but I don't think it's unwinnable for the Sixers. The Cavaliers' small backcourt, I think, is also exploitable in the defensive end. Like, neither team is perfect. I think the Cavs and Knicks are both really good, don't get me wrong, but I think the Sixers could slot into that third spot, right there battling with like the Hawks, with the Orlando Magic, if the Pistons get some jumps, teams like that. And if you just put yourself in that position, you get a few more regular season wins to set up a favorable matchup. There is a world where things break their way and they end up in the conference finals. I've continuously convinced myself of that this summer, that this Sixers team has that type of ceiling. Do I think they could win a championship? No. Everything would have to break their way for that to happen. But could they be really good and shock a lot of people who think it's all over? Absolutely. I don't think that's out of the question. But then as soon as I talk about that, because I tweeted that, hey, I'm all in on the Sixers multiple times this offseason, including when they showcased officially that their black jerseys are back. The 01 Iverson black Sixers jerseys from the early 2000s, like they're some of the best jerseys ever. And I was like, okay, how am I not supposed to buy stock in the Sixers when I kind of like what they've got going on here? I like the VJ Edgecombe pick a lot. I think he's going to be really good from day one. And they're bringing back some of the best jerseys ever. Like, how am I not supposed to buy at least a little bit of stock in the Sixers? You get me? And then immediately the next day, Jared McCain, he had the UCL injury, and then Kyle Lowry's getting announced that he's an NBA and Amazon analyst for this season. What do you mean? He's on a roster. He plays for the Sixers. He was at media day. Like, what are we talking about? I don't know how big of a role he's going to play because he's older and there's a lot of guards there in Philly. But like what is happening with that? So immediately we get that type of news and I'm like, am I just a bozo? Am I a fool? Am I falling for the Sixers again? And I think the answer is just unequivocally, objectively, yes. But like, I don't know. I just have this soft spot for them where I always convince myself that they could do something. But the question then becomes, what if they don't? And that's the most likely outcome, is that they don't do anything. That Embiid can't stay on the court regularly. His level of play, even when he's out there, is no longer MVP caliber. Even if it's all NBA or even just all-star, like that's good, that's awesome. I want to see that, but it's probably not enough. Paul George, maybe he has a little bit of a bounce back, but he doesn't bounce back to the all-star level we saw him at the end of his Clippers run. Tyrese Maxey can be awesome, McCain could be awesome, but like if those two guys don't perform, it's all over. They don't have a lot of front court play, like the power forward position. They still don't have a lot of power forward play. Like any power forward, I feel comfortable with them starting. Like it might be Kelly Oubre or Paul George, and neither one of those guys should be your four because, you know, they lose Yabu to New York, a team that they're going to try and compete with. Like Quentin Grimes coming back, then there's a little bit of a logjam there with Quentin Grimes and Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, as well as VJ Edgecombe. Like that's just a lot of guys that kind of need to play that like 1, 2, maybe up to a 3 if you want to upsize some of those guys. Like there are legitimate concerns with this team, roster construction wise, health wise, everything in between. It's likely it's not going to go well. So then what do? Because that also becomes a big question mark. It's not as easy as, you know, say for the Milwaukee Bucks, they suck this year. And then Giannis requests a trade and then, you know, they start from scratch. Like, yeah, that could happen because teams want Giannis. If the Sixers struggle, do teams want Joel Embiid? Because if you can get the best version of him, then hell yeah, you want Joel Embiid. Of course you do. Any team, like, you know, people are going to lie to themselves, but if your favorite team could get Joel Embiid, you'd probably want him on your team. The issue is his big-time contract, and is he going to be healthy? What level is he going to play at? So this isn't even just, can Embiid bring the Sixers to new heights or restore them to what they've been previously this decade? It's also, can Joel Embiid have a good enough audition to be traded this offseason if things don't go the Sixers' way and they decide to restart? Paul George, he's got a lot of years left on that contract, and it was always going to be bad by the end. But if it's also bad by the beginning, how do you possibly get off that contract? I mean, if you're the Sixers, maybe you don't need to because he's going to be bad enough where you can tank and you're still going to lose a million games despite him being on your roster. But at some point, you know, you want that money to come off the books. Is there a way to make some type of trade package work where you deal him to a team that's rebuilding, that doesn't mind taking the money as well as some assets, and maybe you get a decent pick back or decent piece back to just try and go ahead and restart anew? You know, Maxey, I would imagine, is here for the next era, and he still is really young. Like Tyrese Maxey is turning 25 in November. He can be here for the next era, but you're also already paying him a lot of money. Is there a world where they consider resetting their financial timeline and trading away Tyrese Maxey? And I think a million teams would love to go ahead and grab Tyrese. Then, you know, whether he's part of the future or not, you do have a really good core to build around. Like you've got Jared McCain, you've got VJ Edgecombe. I think Justin Edwards had a pretty good end to last season. Adem Bona, I think, is going to be pretty solid as their backup big. I like him quite a bit. You know, they can get a top pick. They've still got some interesting draft capital as well at their disposal. The Sixers, you know, despite all the doom and gloom around them for the Joel Embiid era, whenever that era comes to an end, they've got a pretty good foundation to go ahead with. And that's part of what makes them so confusing, because there's a part of me that's like, should they just throw in the towel now and start to rebuild like early? around it, although, you know, you have to trade Embiid, and is that even possible at the moment? But rebuild ASAP around Edgecombe and Maxey and McCain. But even like then, those three guys, does that work as a 1, 2, and a 3? Or is there a little bit of a logjam there? So do you consider swapping out a McCain or a VJ Edgecombe for somebody else? Can McCain and Maxey ever coexist in a backcourt together? I really don't know defensively if that's possible. And, you know, they could then just go ahead and grab a top pick as soon as this season. But there's also a world where, because they're so injury prone like we saw last season, they may not even have to rebuild. They could just go into this season with their plan of like, hey, we're going to be competitive, and then suck anyways because everybody's hurt. I have no idea. You could tell me the Sixers end up 12th, 13th in the East, or you could tell me they end up 3rd, 4th. And I'm not, like, I'll listen to your argument 100%. If you said you're from the future and either one of those things happened or anything in between, I'm like, okay, yeah, I believe you. Like, you don't have to really convince me to anything else. You don't even have to give me like future lottery numbers. I kind of just believe you, because that's how wide of a range of outcomes the Sixers have. So I don't know. It's such a confusing and interesting situation over there in Philadelphia. One that I'm super excited to see how it plays out, because I have no idea. Again, I kind of believe in the Sixers, but I also know my belief is misplaced and it's almost 100% wrong. Like, I know that. It's a heart versus mind type of situation with Philadelphia. Like, I've been duped by myself, by the Philadelphia 76ers, and maybe it's happening again, but also I want to know, where do you think the Sixers are going to finish this season? Do you agree with me that there was a world, like if, again, someone from the future came and told you Philadelphia ended up 3rd in the Eastern Conference? Are you calling them crazy? Are you saying, yeah, I could kind of see that? Are you somewhere in between? What about like 13th, 12th, 14th, anywhere in that type of range? Like, what is the feasible range in your mind for Philadelphia? And also, I guess this season too could determine if Nick Nurse keeps his job, or if Daryl Morey stays as the general manager. Do they trust Daryl Morey to go into a rebuild this next era if they fail? Who could possibly trade for Joel Embiid? What trades exist out there? Paul George even. Does Maxey get moved because of that big time contract he already has on the salary cap table? These are all things that I have been swirling around in my head with Philadelphia. And Jared McCain, I think Jared McCain could be unbelievable this season. Did y'all see what he did last season? Because McCain was going to run away with Rookie of the Year. I mean, he was putting up monster numbers. And it wasn't just like, he's putting up 30 points, but he's doing it inefficiently. He was putting up like a really efficient 20 points per game and like 6, 7, 8 assists a night for a short period of time. It wasn't the biggest sample size, but like, come on. What he was doing out there feels replicable. He was just really good. He was so in control of the game. He was fluid. Jared McCain is really good. I like VJ Edgecombe a lot. So part of me is like, I wish they would just tear this down already so I can see those guys thrive in the biggest way. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the Sixers. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for Embiid to get back to his former self, for Paul George to bounce back. I want to see them good, because in this Eastern Conference right now, to me, I feel pretty good that it's the Knicks and the Cavaliers. I think those are the two best teams pretty solidly, but you know, like Atlanta, Orlando, those teams could make some noise. But I want to see more. I want more teams to rise from the shadows and suddenly be good. I want to see Toronto actually be kind of sick. I want to see Giannis go on this crazy revenge tour where everybody's doubting him in the Bucks and he's averaging 35 points per game and they're actually pretty good, shockingly. I want to see the Pistons take a jump, everything in between. I want to see chaos in the East. I want to see new juggernauts step up. Last year, nobody thought the Pacers were going to go to the NBA Finals or even win it. Like, they were in a Game 7. Like, they could have won the whole NBA Finals. Nobody thought that. Maybe Philly, in a very weird backwards way, is like that kind of team where nobody's really picking them, but suddenly here they are, they actually get healthy again. It's probably insane to say that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Philadelphia. Weirdest situation in the NBA, most confusing situation. I'm going to name the video something like that. They're all those things. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are on the Sixers. Where do you predict them to finish this season? What are you expecting from Joel Embiid, Paul George, all the other guys? Also, the worst part about this, you know, tragically quick end to like Embiid's dominance, if it continues that way, is that I just don't know how many people are going to truly remember prime Embiid for what he was. I know, you know, didn't make it to a conference finals, whatever, playoff struggles, there were ups and downs, but genuinely one of the most dominant forces I have ever watched with my two eyes. I can't believe some of the things that he has done. Hopefully he's able to get back to the level at some point. But yeah, I appreciate watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. Real Wednesday back.